We start in the Caribbean, where Hurricane Melissa is now moving northeast toward Cuba's second largest city. The storm has been downgraded to a powerful Category 4 storm hours after making landfall in nearby Jamaica as the strongest ever storm to hit the Caribbean island nation. Local authorities have declared the entire island a disaster area as residents try to save what they can.
Fighting to save the roof in the face of one of the most powerful storms in the history of the Atlantic. Hurricane Melissa plowed across Jamaica, bringing with it catastrophic winds, rain and storm surge, leaving hundreds of thousands without power and forcing both residents and tourists to take shelter. This couple had traveled to Jamaica for a family reunion, but the arrival of Melissa changed their plans.
Here is our home away from home as we shelter through the storm. Lots of people.
We were just expecting it to be sunshine and roses. We spent the night in the shelter last night, and we could hear everyone sleeping, and even the babies were asleep. And I mean, little babies around us and little children, everyone was asleep. And it was peaceful in the shelter. And so that gave us peace.
There have been multiple reports of landslides, fallen trees, and extensive damage to homes, hospitals, and schools. Authorities say floodwaters have trapped locals and tourists alike, leaving them with no choice but to ride out the storm.
It is pounding, a few windows are broken, a lot of water is coming in, so we're just basically pushing that towels and stuff at the doors like that coming in. And the level of noise is ridiculous. Trees have already bended over and flew away, and some of our roof is currently off.
As Melissa plows on toward Cuba, some low-lying and coastal communities have been completely evacuated, and the government is bracing for the worst.
There will be much work to do. We know that there will be a lot of damage caused by this hurricane, but we have all the capacity to recover.
The island is in for a rough ride, with heavy rainfall and a substantial storm surge expected along its coastline.
I asked meteorologist Matthew Cappucci whether other places in Hurricane Melissa's path are out of harm's way to some extent, since it's now been downgraded to a Category 4 storm.
Well, realistically, anything above a 3 is a major hurricane. Now, the Saffir-Simpson hurricane scale, that 1 through 5 scale, rates hurricanes only in terms of maximum sustained winds near the core. But we have to remember, hurricanes present a multitude of different hazards: heavy rainfall, inland flooding, damaging surge near the coastline, in addition, of course, to that wind. So, yes, the maximum winds have come down a little bit. It's kind of like if you have a cup of coffee and you're stirring that coffee and you get like a dip in the middle. That's basically the low pressure of the hurricane. And as that dip gets lower, the fluid spins a little faster. If you stopped stirring, the fluid would spin slower and the dip would come back up. That low pressure would start to ease a little bit. That's what happened just now as Melissa came ashore. It lost the ocean warm waters to kind of make that low pressure to begin with. So it's kind of filling in right now. So the winds are coming down a bit, but that doesn't negate the flood risk, the surge risk, and the fact that it's strengthening once again en route to Cuba.
And what stands out to you about Hurricane Melissa so far?
I think the fact that it was meteorological perfection in the worst way possible. And what I mean by that is, to get a storm this intense, you need to have everything, every box checked off. You need incredibly warm ocean waters. You need moisture at all levels of the atmosphere. You need weak upper level winds so as to not knock the storm off kilter. And you need spreading or divergence of the air aloft. The more exhaust you fan away from the storm up top, the more warmth can come in the bottom to strengthen it further. We have this figure in meteorology called potential intensity. Basically says, it's a math equation. Basically says, if we had an idealized hurricane that could fully take advantage of the environment, how strong could it theoretically get? Melissa got pretty darn close to that theoretical limit, which is a testament to how incredible it was.
Okay, wow. So one of the strongest storms ever in the Caribbean. How reliable, though, are those historical records, and how difficult is it to compare with past hurricanes, considering the changes and the improvement in the measuring systems now?
It's a really good question, and one that I have to answer with a little bit of nuance. It's certainly true that 100 years ago, we certainly didn't have the record keeping we have today. Nowadays, we have access to satellites overhead, 22,000 miles above the ground. We've had those since about 1970. We have aircraft nowadays that go into the storm to investigate, so we get better data. I'd say dating back to 1970 is kind of when good records started coming about. Prior to that, it was mainly ship reports or various sort of early types of monitoring. But I would say that even in the past 50, 60 years of records that we have, this stands out as one of the top storms in our history.
Okay, meteorologist Matthew Cappucci from Washington, D.C. Thank you. And Dr. Kristina Dahl is the Vice President for Science at Climate Central. That's a nonprofit news organization that analyzes and reports on climate science. She joins us now from San Francisco. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
So Hurricane Melissa has been downgraded from a Category 5 to a Category 4 storm. What exactly does that mean in terms of the impact and damage it can cause?
Well, we know that as a hurricane's wind speed increases, the potential for damage also increases. Now, Hurricane Melissa was at some point one of the strongest storms in the Atlantic Basin with winds of 185 miles per hour. It has significantly weakened since then, but make no mistake, it's still incredibly damaging in terms of its wind speeds. And it's not just the wind, right? It's the storm surge that the storm brings along with it that can cause massive flooding, and it's also the heavy rainfall. So hurricanes really are this triple threat, and just because the category has dropped a bit doesn't mean that the potential for damage isn't still very high.
Scientists have been warning for quite a while that climate change is responsible for extreme weather events like this. Could you tell us more about the factors that are causing these powerful hurricanes?
Sure. So hurricanes are one of the Earth's way of moving energy around on the surface, moving heat and energy from one part of the planet to another. So hurricanes have always happened, even without climate change, but climate change is affecting them in some very profound ways. As we warm the oceans, that extra heat provides fuel to the hurricane. We know from analysis that my colleagues have done at Climate Central that the waters underneath Hurricane Melissa were about 1.5 degrees Celsius warmer than normal because of climate change. And that has translated to an increase in the wind speed of Hurricane Melissa of about 10 miles per hour. In addition to making hurricanes stronger, we know that hurricanes with climate change are more likely to undergo rapid intensification, which is when they strengthen very quickly in a short amount of time. They're also much more likely to dump heavier rainfall because a warmer atmosphere can hold more moisture that then dumps out as rain. So there are a lot of different ways that climate change is amplifying hurricanes.
So given that amplification becoming kind of a new normal for people who are in the path of hurricanes, what do those vulnerable communities need to do to become more resilient to these disasters?
That's a great question, because we know that communities can build resilience in hurricane-prone areas. For example, in the United States, in 1992, a very powerful hurricane, Hurricane Andrew, hit Florida. Now, after the devastation caused by the hurricane, the state enacted very strict building codes so that all homes and businesses that were built after that 1992 storm were built to try to withstand hurricanes like Hurricane Andrew. And what we've seen over and over with hurricanes that have hit the state since then, excuse me, is that the homes that were built after that time are much more resilient. So we can build stronger buildings. We can also improve early warning systems to try to help people get to safety before a storm hits.
Okay, climate scientist Kristina Dahl, thanks for joining us.